Hey friends, just want to say what's up and thank you so much for tuning into the Glow Up. My name is Sharon Pasha. I go by they, she pronouns, and I am part of the youth task force here at About Face. And before we get started, I have a few announcements. First things first, what you'll be watching is a recording of our showcase that was hosted via Zoom on July 11th, 2020. And just so you know, we told our audience members to bring a candle that night. So if you feel so inclined, feel free to grab a nearby candle and lighter for the optimal glow up experience. Secondly, in this showcase, we as an ensemble would like to acknowledge that some of these pieces are very emotional. And as you'll see throughout the video, we will be using the term Bibo. It stands for breath in, breath out. This is a self-care method brought to us by Soyinka Rahim. And whenever you need to, we would just love to say, feel free to take a breath. Lastly, as you know, our show is called a glow up. And when we talk about a glow up in the queer community, what are we usually talking about? The looks, the emotional maturity, the growth. We as humans are constantly growing and going through many transformations, like speaking your own thoughts and feelings, stating your boundaries, educating yourself on being a better accomplice, like all of that. And for this piece, we wanted to go big, to broaden this glow up to not only ourselves, but beyond ourselves. Because do you know who needs a big glow up right now? The United States of America, y'all. That's who! And honestly, we are so ready for this growth, and we have some advice on how this country and every one of us can get there. So, without further ado, let's get started with a message from our special friend, the Prince of Darkness, Jack Cadaver.
My fellow white people, we need to have a conversation about something we do not talk enough about in left and liberal spaces. Systematic racism. And I know what you're thinking. Someone wants to talk about racism, they're gonna fuck up. And I can't join in or else I'm gonna fuck up too. Alright, now unpucker your assholes. Rest assured, we are gonna fuck up. Because we are all racist. And I hope you don't mind I'm using the royal we here, white progressives. But as Prince of the Damned, I do insist we bow to our shared pronoun. You and I both know that we've been silently complicit. We talk a big game about supporting Black Lives Matter, but there's no action behind it. We have not come out for our black brothers and sisters enough. We have not gone to enough protests, and we have not donated enough money, and we have not demanded action from our political leaders nearly enough. Hey, wanna see me do an impression of one of us donating to the protests? People are dying, Susan. I don't think they can use your packet of Band-Aids and 3 jars of marinara sauce. Harsh truth time. Having white allies in your movement is like having sex with men. We have no idea what we're doing, but we're just gonna go ahead and get on in there, as long as it feels good for us and us alone. And then about 3 minutes in, we're gonna call it a night, even though this thing is long from over. And we get so sleepy. If we really want to do something about all that white guilt, we need to take swift, decisive action. We need to call our mayor and our aldermans and make sure that they pass CPAC. That's the Civilian Police Accountability Council. It's currently in the legislation for Chicago right now, but we need to pass it. So email them, call them, show up at their house, and yell all night long if that's what it takes. Putting civilians in charge of the police and giving them the power to actually police the pigs is the bare minimum that we need to get passed to help start reforming the police. And that's if we even want to keep the police around at all. For me, defunding the police would mean getting rid of them entirely. But I don't know if we're all ready to have that conversation, white liberals, although I do recommend you read some stuff about abolition. One thing I think we can all get our minds around is getting the police out of public schools. The Board of Education did just vote to keep the $33 million contract with the CPD, but that does not mean that we can give up. We need to keep putting more pressure on them. How come we had a months-long strike because teachers weren't being paid enough and were expected to buy their own students' supplies? But we can spend $33 million of the school's budget so that police can be in the schools? You're telling me all the little piggies have enough money to cosplay as the damn Avengers, but I can't get any counselors in my schools? Instead of giving our children no other option besides the prison to school pipeline, what if we gave them the tools they needed to better themselves? One thing's for certain, we need to get Lori Lightfoot out of the mayor's office. She is a cop. She is a black, queer, woman cop, but she is a cop nonetheless. And all cops are bastards. Can we all admit to ourselves, Andersonville gays, that Lori Lightfoot was our fault? Ugh, I don't like it. So be sure to call and email her and let her know that if she does not defund the police and pass CPAC, then we will not be voting for her again. And then
don't fucking vote for her again.
These are just a few of the things that we need to get past. This is not an exhaustive list. This is bare minimum if you can't go to the protests or you can't donate money. If you're broke, this is the very least you can be doing. But I know some of you are watching this because you're being courted to donate money to About Face Theater. And I think it's totally noble that you want to fund the arts, especially the gay arts. But I think if you can afford it, you should be donating your money to organizations and activist groups that work a bit closer with Black Lives Matter. And if you can't find a protest to go to, and you are all out of legislation that you think needs to be passed along to your senators, congressperson, mayor, governor, city council, all that, you need to be using that time to educate yourself. It is not your black friend's job to educate you. Watch a fucking documentary. Read a book for once. I know it's a lot easier to sit on the fence and watch what happens, but if all we're doing on our Sundays is getting brunch with the girls, then we're not really allies. And you may think it's kind of irresponsible to get rid of the police because we have a lot of crime on the South Side and we need them. As a white criminal myself, if the police were to practice broken glass policing up here on this side of the river as they do on the South Side, even with just me, I would probably bring up your crime rate enough to raise some eyebrows. But is it fair that just because I'm a degenerate, every other day drinker who looks like me should have to deal with the police being assholes? No! You would never put up with that. So how come minorities have to put up with it? But I'm sure what you're thinking next will really change my mind. You're gonna say, what about the rapists? Well, fuck me in the ass with a chainsaw, Bethany. What are we gonna do about all the rapists? 'Cause as far as I can tell, no matter which way you vote this November, you're going to be voting one into office. So it kind of seems to me like the cops aren't really doing anything about all these rapists anyways. But we can't have any of that. Because if we don't have enough people in our prisons, how are we gonna afford to make shit? I mean, slavery has been around in America since the beginning, and we haven't figured out anything else to do with our economy besides it since then. Slavery is still a fucking thing in 2020. Let's do something about it. I'm also hearing a lot of talk about, oh, I can't wait for next summer when things are back to normal and more fun. Newsflash, we can't just be doing this for a few weeks. This is something constant that we need to be working at for years and years to come. This is a matter of life and death for Black Americans, not just, oh, make a few calls, send a few emails, donate $100, and call it an evening. This is lifelong work. All in all, I think we've been a huge disappointment.
Timothy Thomas, Danroy Henry Jr., Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, Artego Damon Howard.
This is not a debate. This is a demand. You have watched years of voices roar in support of marginalized communities, and we demand for those taking part in the crimes done against Black, Indigenous, and people of color to be held accountable. In smaller words, Qualified immunity is bullshit. Safety shouldn't come with conditions. Safety shouldn't be left at the disposal of a gun. We are not asking for a seat at the table. That table abused and enslaved our ancestors for centuries and continues to do so with a camera in our faces. We want to burn the table down and build a new one. We must dismantle the systems that contribute to all state-sanctioned violence and inequality. The national concept of race is not one created by Black people. Rather, it was created to work against us. But we are the ones who created dialogue, climbed mountains, and took action to invoke the change we are constantly denied. Protests and civil unrest historically are used by Black, Indigenous, and people of color to force white people, especially the ones in power, to confront their obsession with punishment, their greed, and attitude toward their own white privilege, as racism only maintains white supremacy. Our language of riots, demonstrations, marches are the things within our power as Black Americans that help us apply pressure to everyone in the White House, police departments, office of local elected officials, and anyone else who challenges positive and structural change for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. The status quo is constantly being questioned. The status quo gets people hurt. The power is in us to take back the streets. Let them hear our frustration and make it hard for them to ignore. Black people are being gunned down by police. Brown families are locked in cages. Indigenous women are disappearing. Children of color are conditioned in school to enter the prison system. Profiling, harassment, discrimination. This legislation lit the match to a fire we did not start. Justice looks like accountability. Justice looks like policies. Justice looks like abolishment of all oppression. And it only feels like an attack to those who are not ready.
Jeremy Lett, Laval Hall, Thomas Allen, Charlie Lundu Kyungang, Michaelis Vincent.
I will hold you up. I will not let you fall.
Ancestors watching, I know they're watching. Ancestors watching, I know. Ancestors watching, I know they're watching. Ancestors watching, I know. I am not my ancestors. I do not believe that I am half as strong as they were. Black folks have said they are their ancestors' wildest dreams, but I don't believe that's true. I think that just like me, my ancestors could dream of so much bigger than this. I don't think they ever would have wished for their offspring to be activists. They imagined a world where there wouldn't be a need to protest, that gender equality would already exist, that hundreds of years after they took their last breath, their babies would not still be fighting just to stay alive. I think if my ancestors could see today, they'd say, "Dang, I wish I had fought harder. I wish people would have listened to me so that my little ones wouldn't have to raise their voices and their fists fighting the same tyranny and reliving the same tragedies." They'd wish that when we wrote our poems and our songs and our plays, that they didn't always have to be about oppression. I imagine their dreams look like Afrofuturism, a version of Wakanda without a white man from the CIA infiltrating. I think they know that we never wanted to be activists. They'd be proud that we were speaking up, but be angry that we still have to. I think my ancestors hoped that my work would be entirely outdated by now. Breath in this body will carry us through. Breath in this body will carry us through. I cannot believe that black people are still fighting for air. The knee of white supremacy has been in our neck long before George Floyd. Medical and environmental racism has been taking the lives of black people long before COVID-19. But racism is not a sickness. It is a pattern of behavior that, just like it was learned, can be unlearned. My ancestors never would have guessed in a million years that people would still be hanging their babies from trees and now having the nerve to say that we did it to ourselves. No matter how hard it gets, black people would never choose to leave this world that way. Because if there's one thing that we care about, it's our families. We would never let our families wonder if we died at the hands of cops or Klansmen. And since we are on the subject of death, should I die of white supremacy, do not hold a funeral. Do not live and let live. Do not forget and forgive. Do not hug the one who killed me, but put my body on the steps of Capitol Hill and show Congress what their inaction has caused. Burn the city down till they make change. Because I'm going to be somebody's ancestor. And I dream of a world where my people, the people who come behind me, won't have to live like this, that we have taken what belongs to us by any means necessary. And yes, I do sound angry. And if you're not angry, there is something wrong with you. If you are the descendants of colonizers, of people who invented anti-blackness, I encourage you to try just as hard to piss your ancestors off as I tried to make my ancestors proud. Ancestors watching, I know they're watching. Ancestors watching, I know. Ancestors watching, I know they're watching. Ancestors watching, I know.
Tony Robinson, Anthony Hill, Bobby Gross, Brendan Jones, Eric Harris.
Slavery never died. It evolved and adapted to the legal restraints of the time. In the 13th Amendment, it states, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except. There's a literal exception on the practice of slavery. It continues, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States. We've been living with this exception for 155 years. Aside from our federal government, the police system is one of the oldest and racist institutions in America. It was never designed to protect all communities. Its origins can be traced from the slave patrols that were organized by Southern white men to keep slaves on the slave owner's property and bring back runaway slaves if they escaped, all to maintain the social order of the South. Our modern police system hasn't strayed far from that original model. It's all about protecting property and the property owner. So it must be struck down and replaced with a new multi-system of law enforcement agencies that truly serve and protect all peoples. America has never even admitted or apologized for its wrongs. Even the Australian government apologized to the Aboriginal people, and it's a systemically racist society just like the US. But they've taken the first step in addressing those wrongs. We've never taken that first step in healing and reconciliation by recognizing our evils and working to undo the damage.
Walter Scott, Frank Shepard, William Chapman, David Felix, Brendan Glenn.
I will hold you up. I will not let you fall.
Brown skin girl, your skin just like pearl, the best thing in the world. I'll never trade you for anybody else singing. Blessed with my papa's shade, my skin was sun-kissed before her beams even reached me. I was born with a gift, a natural color. that inspires these wannabe POC white girls into burning themselves to a crisp at your local LA tan. This is a love letter to my peeps of color. To all my friends that have been described as exotic, tropical, and foreign, where people compare your shade to different cups of coffee because in reality, they're thirsty for this caramel, cocoa, hazel bronze beauty, and they're low-key begging to take a sip. This is for the ones that have people playing the guessing game of where you're actually from, or have experienced the common American greeting of, do you speak English? I'm sending so much love to those whose shade cannot be erased with Pond's, Obagi Nuderm, papaya soap, Fair and Lovely, or any other skin bleaching agent your mama gave you for you to feel beautiful at the tender age of 12. I see you. And I am so proud of you because embracing your color isn't easy. It takes a different kind of strength to finally hear and challenge those toxic whispers tucked away into your subconscious that started with a cruel game of telephone, passed down from colonizers to thousands of bloodlines, eventually making its way from the mouths of your loved ones to you. Who knew words like savage, dirty, ugly, ratchet, and trashy had the capability to crush a human spirit and brainwash generation after generation, normalizing cultural self-hate? But we out here. We're killing it. Nipping the self-hate from the bud, tearing it to shreds, cutting and unraveling this unnecessary tightrope of standards you shouldn't have to balance on in the first place, finally hanging up that stupid-ass phone, breaking a poisonous record that was once on repeat for almost half a millennia. And holy shit, I am so proud of you for finally basking in the true light, unapologetically and unafraid, planting the seeds and spreading new words of self-love for generations to come. So please, take up all the space you need. Bask in this garden that you've helped create as the sun welcomes you in open arms, because you deserve it. You always have. And to those still hiding underneath their parasols, I see you too. And honestly, I cannot wait for the moment when you're finally to embrace the sun's glow and show the world your true color.
Chris Jackson, Spencer McCain, Victor Emmanuel, La Rosa Salvador Ellswood, Darius Stewart.
I look like a little white girl. Because of my looks, people don't expect me to go through struggles, but I am a Latinx person. I fear for my fellow Mexican and Puerto Rican brothers and sisters. I don't know what they go through, and that is a privilege. My privilege is a color. My privilege is not knowing what my brothers and sisters have dealt with their whole lives. I never had the same talks as my brother because he's darker than me, and I never remember the times my father has been pulled over because he's a man of color. Some people think change is just going to happen, but nothing will change unless we strive for it. Living in our racist society, some feel they cannot do anything if they have not experienced it. But if you haven't experienced it, it doesn't mean it hasn't happened. Don't wait. Strike.
Albert Joseph Davis, Samuel DeBose, Christian Taylor, Ashams Farrow Manley, Felix Kumi.
I will hold you up. I will not let you fall.
Hey everyone, my name is Ben Rezko. I hope you're all doing well tonight. You probably can't tell from looking at me, but I'm half white and half Middle Eastern. More specifically, my dad is from Syria and my mom is mostly Scottish. I was wondering if there were any other Syrian Scots here in the audience. Just let me know with an eh. Yeah, surprising the sound exists in both cultures. You know, matchmaking is a long-running tradition in Middle Eastern culture. Recently, my dad was talking about finding nice Arab men for some of my female cousins who are single and are starting to get too old. And in this case, too old means entering your mid to late 20s and 30s. And you know, I'm not getting any younger. And dad's telling me and mom about this potential matchmaking. And I'm like, well, can you find me a nice Arab man? I mean, I'm an out gay man. I just came out to my dad a little over a year ago. And honestly, it cannot be that hard. Who can tell the difference between Arab men and gay men anyway? One, we are both doused in expensive perfume. We both wear pants that are tighter than Olympian runners' track shorts. And we kiss each other in greeting. It's just gay men are always like, hey bitch. And Arabs go, hello habibi, how are you? Except you can always spot a gay Arab because they go, hello bitch, how are you habibi? I know there have to be a lot of closet cases in the Arab community. I hear stories from friends that say they hook up with secretly bi Arab guys all the time. And I'm a little surprised, if not insulted. I have not had one secret love affair with another Arab boy. I mean, I have opened up a Grindr at more than one family wedding. And no, Sicko, a lot of our parties are at restaurants and clubs, so I'm talking about finding a mysterious stranger, and not a cousin I only see on major holidays. Well, in our culture, we do marry our cousins, but in at least last the half century, they've been severed by 2 or more degrees, so I think we're out of the hot zone. Okay, everyone, we're kind of pivoting here, so please stay with me. A little bit of audience participation. So feel free to turn on your cameras real quick and let's do this. I'm going to say a statement, and if the statement holds true for you, you're going to raise your hand, all right? So here we go. Raise your hand if you're racist. All right, wow, I see a few honest folks there. Yeah, I imagine most of you aren't. Yeah. You might even laugh, but I'm quite serious. When you live in and benefit from a systemically racist society, and that includes every aspect of life, education, work, government, and so on, you are a racist person by default. Okay, I'm going to tell everyone to take a deep breath here. I've been advised it's a good time to take a collective breath. So we're all going to do a bit of in and out together, all right? We're going to breathe in through our nose and out through our mouth. Here we go. Breathe in. Breathe it out. One more time in. And breathe it out. Okay, good job. I'm not going to explain to you how we live in a systemically racist society for the same reason I wouldn't explain to you why Earth's climate is getting warmer every year. Do your own research, crack a book open, look at Twitter nowadays, whatever you got to do. I'm here to own up to my own racist shit in the hope that you examine yourself. All of us who benefit from society, and white people are at the very top of that pyramid scheme, are racist. And we need to acknowledge that if we're going to address it. You can't fix a problem if you can't admit it exists. So for me, it's those little thoughts that pop into your head before you even give them permission to exist. Those assumptive, racist little thoughts that come and you're like, oh my God, did I just think that? With that in mind, let's address something that's pretty heavily prevalent in gay dating / hookup life, sexual racism. Sexual racism is an individual's sexual preference for specific races, an inclination towards or against potential sexual or romantic partners on the basis of perceived racial identity. Now, here's a personal example. I'm on Grindr, and we know what Grindr is, right? It's a queer dating hookup, excuse me, app, right? Yeah, I'm looking to hook up, and I'll be honest. I receive a message, and I see his picture. It's a man who appears to be of Asian descent, and immediately the little voice in my head goes, I'm not really looking to top tonight. And I was horrified. If you don't understand why, let me explain. Asian men in the gay male world are expected to be flamboyant, submissive, and usually always the bottom. And if you're unfamiliar with anal sex, the bottom is the receiver. Little quick sex ed there for you. These stereotypes have been perpetuated by film, TV, and other media forever. We've always tried to make Asian men effeminate. That's what my brain absorbed. So when I saw an Asian man message me, I assumed he wanted to bottom. I placed him in that box with no other information than his perceived physical appearance. This certainly isn't the only time thoughts like this have come up, and it certainly isn't the worst, but it's a racist thought nonetheless. Luckily, I was observant of that fact, and I did not communicate that possibly hurtful thought to him. Being racist doesn't mean you're a bad person, though a lot of bad people are, and we've seen them a lot in video recently. It means we've been taught a certain way to think ever since we were born. You've probably heard people say, go have those hard conversations with your friends and family. But I say, go have that hard conversation with yourself. Confront those thoughts and shut them down when they arise, because what was learned can be unlearned. You can stop your own racism in its path. Thanks for listening.
India Kager, Keith Harrison McLeod, Junior Prosper, Anthony Ashford, Benny Lee Tigner.
Before I opened my eyes, the world already defined me before I even had the chance to know myself. And I, unfortunately, allowed this world to stamp a definition onto me and deem me unworthy if I do not fit into that box. A box of sexism, biphobia, homophobia, and racism. A box that the US government has created to keep people who look like me in check. A box the LGBT community created, but like to mask their biphobia for acceptance. A box that men and other women put me in so I wouldn't step out of the garden that was womanhood. Well, today I say, fuck your box. How dare you categorize me based on my skin color? How dare you categorize me based on my sex? How dare you categorize me based on my sexual identity like they are yours to categorize? How dare you silence my pain as a woman, as a Black woman, as a Black bisexual woman? What right do you have to silence me? I refuse to live in silence while my sexuality is being twisted and misunderstood. I refuse to sit in silence while my Black siblings are being murdered like dogs. I refuse to sit in silence while women's bodies are being dictated and controlled like puppets. My body, my sexuality, my skin is not for you to categorize, nor is it for you to dehumanize. You may not be used to a woman of color speaking up for herself. You may be used to us being meek and quiet, letting Black men talk over us, letting other men talk over us, even though they don't have a single clue what it's like to be a woman of color in this country. Not in this decade. In this decade, we are not silent, we are loud. In this decade, we are here to stand our ground. In this decade, we know our rights. In this decade, I know who I am. I am not a threat to your fragile masculinity and what your personal definition of womanhood is. I am not a threat to your monogamy. I am not a threat to your white suburban utopia. I am not a threat to you, but to the system built to keep me in check. I am a threat to the men in power who would rather kill me than hear me. I am a threat to the system you cling on to like a helpless toddler clinging on to their mother's leg. If you see me as a threat, stop me if you can.
Jamar Clark, Nathaniel Harris Pickett, Miguel Espinal, Michael Noel, Kevin Matthews.
I will hold you up. I will not let you fall.
Unnamed. That is how you will stay in my memory. Unforgotten girl sitting there not doing anything but tormenting me because we didn't talk it out. Not because you were right and I was wrong, but because I wanted to run away. I didn't want to feel like I was worthless, like I had no choice but to sit and listen to you And yet I stayed for so long, letting you talk over me until I had to step away. And I did. And it was glorious, but you came back. Back with your problems, back with your words, back with me, and I didn't want to leave you alone. You knew that I couldn't leave you alone because I may not be weak, but I am empathetic, and you took advantage of that. Knowing it was wrong and that I wasn't okay, but you came first like always. You and your girlfriend like always. And of course, after I stayed and talked to you and helped you, you left me with no word, no reason, no nothing. So I kept thinking I did something wrong. I did this to us, but I know now that it was you. It was always you, and I can't keep doing this forever, so you will be unnamed, unspoken in my house and no longer thought about. You are not my family anymore because family doesn't treat each other like this. No family should treat someone like they're worthless. And I thought I could be done with you, but no, I can't just be done with you. You came back with reinforcements. You both called me only to talk about your problems and only listen if I spoke about you guys. You both didn't care that maybe I was going through my own thing. Maybe I was having relationship issues. Maybe I wanted my friends to be there when I needed them, but we weren't friends anymore, were we? You both took your sides and I wanted to be there. You both left me with no warning, and now it's been a good month. A peaceful month with no bother from you. I haven't heard your name and I haven't heard your sidekick either, so let's keep it at that. Let's stay unnamed until you're ready to talk to me, not just to push it under the rug.
Betty Jones, Anthony Scott, David Joseph, Deshaun L. Perkins, Kaylin Rockmore.
We are queer, we are black, we are brown, and we are tired of this nonsense. We are demanding that police be taken out of schools in order to dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline and help students feel safer. Imagine an officer in the same uniform you saw slam your parent on the ground, who put you in tight handcuffs just because they wanted to make an arrest so they could get overtime. A uniform that is the very reason your mother worries you won't make it home. Be the first thing you see every day at school. This brings up emotions that makes it hard to concentrate on studying and causes you to act out only to have an officer in that very same uniform validate your fear by doing exactly what you were afraid of. This is what black and brown students deal with every day. When I enter the school as a teaching artist, I am always on edge when I see armed officers and metal detectors at the front of the school. It makes me feel like something has happened in that place, or like something will happen at any moment. It's even more unsettling when I, a stranger, am not asked for my bag to be searched. Sometimes they don't even check my ID. This proves that the cops are not there to protect students. When a city spends more employing and weaponizing cops than it does on books and crayons and other things that children need to learn, it proves that they do not care about those students' education. The only thing they care about is intimidating the youth and preparing them for prison. I am always worried that an officer will attack a student while I am teaching, because my work does not ask them to sit down and shut up and comply. It asks them to be free. It tells them to question what is and dream of what is possible, which is the police's worst nightmare.
Christopher J. Davis, Peter Gaines, Jessica Nelson Williams, Michael Eugene Wilson Jr., Bernell Bang.
I will hold you up. I will not let you fall.
Antoine Schumpert, Daravis Kane Rogers, Dalvin Hollins, Donnell Thompson, Livonia Riggins.
Police presence does not make you safer. Every day I watch as the police attack protesters, grope women, and murder Black people proudly on camera. They have so much power and so little accountability that it feels like we are helpless to stop it. Maybe it's because even cops that lose their jobs for murdering someone are able to get a different badge the next town over. Maybe it's because they have qualified immunity, designating them as a protected class above regular citizens. Or maybe it's because they are trained to shoot first and do their job later. It's probably a horrific racist mix of all of it. But if they are doing all this harm, why do we keep them around? To keep us safe? Safe from what? According to the ACLU, of the 10.3 million arrests made in 2018, only 5% of them were arrests for the most serious crimes, such as murder, aggravated assault, and sexual violence. The other 95% were for less harmful or non-harmful crimes like drug possession, sex work, and vagrancy. This means the majority of the police's presence and resources aren't being used to actually keep us safer. Imagine what we could do if we reallocated 95% of our tax money currently going to the police into community services. Not only would we see less arrests in the short term, but for the long term, this could mean giving people the tools to lawfully navigate their unique situation, leading to less crime on the whole. Even with all these support systems, violent crime will never completely go away, unfortunately. But giving a violent gang of criminals guns and as many get out of jail free cards as they like doesn't seem to be making any of us safer.
Terence Crutcher, Alfred Olongo, Christopher Sowell, Andrew DePisa, Darian Barnhill.
I will hold you up. I will not let you fall.
Nana Adamako, Cad Robertson, Raynard Burton Jr., Williams Alteria Woods, Charles David Robinson, Anthony Antonio Ford, Dubois Lister, Calvin Toney, Lawrence Hawkins.
People have been silent for so damn long. And I'm not just talking about specifically Black Lives Matter, but human fucking rights. I never realized that when served American freedom and justice, it came with a side of selfishness and ignorance. The irony that this is magically some new issue that is arising like it hasn't been expected. A revolution was bound to happen when an entire community is forced to the bottom of the socioeconomic and cultural hierarchy. This isn't a new issue. This has quite literally been an issue since long before America was even established. But that makes sense, though, when trying to understand the backlash from ignorant folk, I guess, right? How could you not see this as an issue when this very government and country is founded on the hatred of Black people? Such horrid practices get extended and rewritten to sound less problematic when really, until systemic racism is abolished and white and non-Black POC Americans wake the fuck up within ourselves and recognize our own racism towards Black people, the Black community will never be safe. They will never feel safe. How does that not enrage you? How does that not enrage everyone? Black people matter. Black people have mattered. People just continually forget to recognize and uphold what that statement means. I would like to just take a break in the show to just do another collective Bebo. It's one of my favorites. So just breathe in and breathe out. Let's do another breath. Breathe in and breathe out. Thank you.
Rico Devante, Holden Mark, Brandon Davis, David Jones, Aaron Bailey, DeJuan Guillory, Kata O'Neill, Juan Pedro Pierre, Arthur McCaffey Jr., Ronald Foster, Mario Anthony Bass.
I will hold you up. I will not let you fall.
Since the government and privileged white Americans want to scream about how we have it so well, and if we have so many complaints, we should just leave. Here's a reality check. If I had the money to immigrate to another country, I wouldn't need to leave. I would have enough to sit back and enjoy the shit show like you seem to be doing. I can afford therapy, medicine, house, insurance, and much more. It will cost me an arm, a leg, and a kidney because I'm rich. Sure, there's racism and discrimination, but as long as you have money, you have status in this country. You're something in this country. If you're poor with little to nothing, it's game over for you. You're either a stepping tool for politicians or you're just another unfortunate citizen. How can you, in good conscience, scream there's equality when there are hundreds of homeless Americans? And a large portion of those homeless Americans is the veterans you love ever so much. There is no equality when children are being locked in cages and dying. There is no equality when your citizens are being murdered for their skin color. There is no equality when old white men are making decisions about women's bodies and acting like they know what the fuck they are talking about. There's equality for you, but not for me. Not for my friends who are darker than me. And if we keep this up, there won't be any equality for my children. You know what? Our pledge is a fucking joke. Justice for all my ass. Where's the justice for Sandra Bland? Breonna Taylor? Where's the justice for the hundreds of Black and brown bodies murdered by law enforcement and racists? Fuck your pledge. There won't be justice for all until this country shapes the fuck up. Get a better healthcare system. Brand the KKK a terrorist organization. Defund the police. Require police officers to do more than 6 months of training. And for God fucking sake, arrest Breonna Taylor's killers. This is a demand from a Black woman who is sick and tired of this country. This is a demand of the citizens who are sick and tired of this country. Not just Black and brown citizens, but white citizens who recognize and acknowledge their privilege. We see you and we appreciate you. This is not a fucking race war, but a war on human rights.
Shermichael Ezef, Cameron Hall, Stefan Clark, Danny Thomas, Juan Marquis Jones.
We're not here to be right. We're here to get it right. To all my non-Black people of color and Filipino folks in particular, we have to hold ourselves accountable as well. White supremacy and anti-Blackness isn't only ingrained in white people. As a Filipino American raised by immigrants, anti-Blackness and racism is very present in our culture. It may not be as loud as a swastika or a Confederate flag or an unnecessary phone call to the police. However, a non-malicious joke is still racist. Bleaching your skin and being afraid of becoming dark is racist. And overall, just glorifying white people while throwing shade at Black people is very racist. I understand that imperialism by the Americans and the Spanish have really fucked up our culture in many ways. But in order for the BLM movement and all other movements to take shape and rise, we need to stand in solidarity with the Black community and unlearn 500 years worth of colonizer mentality. Let's have those uncomfortable conversations for those who still don't understand while trying not to get pride in the way. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I believe if we all leave our egos at the door, listen with curiosity, and lead with love, we can truly make change. In the words of my girl, Brené Brown, we're not here to be right. We're here to get it right.
Marcus David L. Peters, Tony Green, Rayshawn Washington, James Leatherwood, Charles Roundtree.
I will hold you up. I will not let you fall.
To whom it may concern, I hope this email finds you well. I apologize for taking so long to get back to you. There's just a lot of people who look like me, who look like my sister, who look like my father, who look like my mother, being slaughtered in the streets by groups of militarized blue collars, and I haven't been able to process any of it. But I do again apologize for missing that first email. Between the film murders and years of systemic oppression, time seems to be repeating itself. I thought it was 1933 and email didn't even exist, but yet here I am, writing back to you, hoping you are not too inconvenienced by the tardiness of this email. It's just that I have no way of explaining to you that I have been lying in bed for days distraught about Breonna Taylor and Tamir Rice and Rakita Boyd and Dominique Fells and Nia Wilson and Elijah McClain. I still even weep before my own existence for Emmett Till. My anger has built a home and keeps me up at night like a bad dream. Ancestral energy blankets my torn spirit and tears drench my pillows. I know you aren't interested in hearing about all that. I am aware. I am used to falling on deaf ears. But I am just tired. How do you begin to explain an exhaustion that can't be put into words? How can one remain in the loop if the loop is being set on fire? I also wanted to let you know that I won't be able to attend the next 3 Zoom meetings this month or be able to RSVP to the company's potluck. My messages are piled to the brim with bail funds, GoFundMes, petitions. You've seen the news, right? Or have you seen what's actually happening? Have you seen what they don't want to show you? Is it too ugly? Are you uncomfortable? Should we die slower for you? Is it too much? Are our screams too loud for you? But yes, forgive me for not answering your phone calls or your email chains. It's just that I have been growing flowers for yet another Black girl laid dead before her name even reached my mind. I wake up and carry the trauma of what the future may hold. My ancestors cried in the night for freedom. Years of shackling skin and bones, carrying the weight of the world on their backs, still singing sweet songs of hope. Are they proud of us? Is this their wildest dreams? But sure, I think the idea of a diversity and inclusion training would be great. And I do again apologize for missing that first email.
Danny Washington, Gregory Griffin, Marcus McVeigh, Isaiah Lewis, Ryan Twyman, Yusef Richardson, Tatiana Jefferson, Michael Dean, William Howard Green, Donnie Sanders, Elijah McClain, Breonna Taylor, Drayshawn Reed, Tony McDade, David McAtee, George Floyd.
I will hold you up and I will not let you fall.
All right, guys. Just so y'all know, we're coming to the end of the showcase. However, we have one last thing before we go. Can everyone please take out their candles? If you don't have one, that's totally fine. Feel free to use your flashlight on your phone, or a stock photo of a candle that we may have provided for you in the email. At this moment, I'll just give you some time to turn off your lights, light your candles, or any of your preferred sources.
To close out this showcase, we as an ensemble would like to take this moment to honor, shine light, and pay tribute to the Black lives that were mentioned throughout this showcase, as well as several other things since we are all experiencing a collective mourning during this time. And we would all love you, the audience, to turn on your cameras and join us in this call and response piece. You will see that this is pretty much a candlelight vigil. Some members of the ensemble will list their tribute one at a time, and afterwards, everyone will call back with the line, "I will hold you up, I will not let you fall." For example, it'll go a little something like this.
To the lives lost to COVID-19.
I will hold you up, I will not let you fall.
If you'd like to see the response quote, we've provided it in the chat on the side. And before we get started, I'm just going to call another collective Bebo. Okay. So, breathe in, breathe out. One more time. Breathe in, breathe out.
To over 19 million people, including over 12 million children experiencing the humanitarian crisis in Yemen.
I will hold you up. I will not let you fall. To the over 500,000 lives lost to COVID-19.
I will hold you up. I will not let you fall.
Vanessa Guillen and the many soldiers lost or silenced from sexual abuse and assault in the military.
I will hold you up. I will not let you fall. To Indigenous folks whose culture has been systematically erased and to this day have to fight to be given their basic human rights.
I will hold you up. I will not let you fall.
To undocumented refugees and dreamers who are living in fear of ICE and deportation, as well as the many Latinx families who are separated and locked away in these horrific detention centers and camps.
I will hold you up.
I will not let you fall.
And to our Black siblings who have faced nearly 401 years of systematic racism, generational trauma, and personal loss, as well as the many Black lives we've lost to police brutality.
I will
hold you up. I will not let you fall.
As well as the many trans siblings we've lost too soon for doing something so simple as living out and freely. Tonight, we honor their names as well.
Dustin Parker.
Nulisa Luisiano Ruiz.
Yampi Mendez Orocho.
Monica Diamond.
Lexi.
Johanna Metzger.
Serena Angelique Valesquez Ramos.
Leila Peleas Sanchez.
Penelope Diaz Ramirez.
Nina Pop.
Keel J. O'Regan.
Tony McDay.
Dominique Remy Fells.
Rhea Milton.
Jane Thompson.
Selena Reyes Hernandez.
Brayla Stone.
Mercy Mack.
Shockey Peters.
Bree Black.
Summer Taylor.
And now, for a minute of silence for all those mentioned before and all the people whose names we don't know. Thank you all for taking this minute with us. Please repeat after me, even as you keep your mics off and speak these words into your own spaces. Please repeat. I will hold you up. I will not let you fall. All together now. I will hold you up. I will not let you fall.
Let's do one last collective Bebo before we end this showcase. Breathe in. Breathe out. One more. Breathe in. Breathe out. All right, everyone. Well, that was our showcase. Thank you all so much for spending your Saturday night with us, for listening, laughing, and mourning with us. As an ensemble, we have taken the time to choose a couple of Black-centered organizations that we encourage you to share a few dollars with if you can, as a way of giving to benefit tonight's preparation and performance. That list and a link to their website can be found in an email reminder for this evening's showcase, as well as in the Zoom chat. Before we go, we would love to give a great big shout out to our lovely director, Amy Sheehan, for organizing this whole program for all of us this evening. We love you very much, Names. This would all not be possible without you. Thank you again, everyone, and we hope you have a nice and a peaceful night.